And hello, everyone. Welcome to your local Cowboy radio broadcast. I'm back. After a month, I took a little break. I had felt myself getting burnt out. When you're looking at politics and history and current events every single day, it does start to take its toll. It's a little bit demoralizing. It can be a little crazy. So yeah, it's always good to take a break. And if you ever feel yourself getting like that, there's nothing wrong with that. I would just take a little break. There's nothing wrong with that either. Just give it a second. It's not going anywhere. In fact, it'll be there twice fold when you get back. Um, as it has now. So yeah, I've got lots of new topics, lots of new things I want to talk about. Let's just get into it. This time around, I've been feeling a bit heated towards a particular state governor. In fact, she's the state governor of Michigan, the state I happen to be born in and currently live in. Not only has she made a mockery of our state and herself, she's continuing to throw the wealth and potential of younger generations down the drain. For over a year now, she has waged a pseudo-war against a virus with a 1.8% chance of death, and that's using the New York Times numbers, so not even including all the suspicious COVID deaths labeled by hospitals, probably so they could collect more federal cash. Throughout 2020, she consistently forced the oppressive boot of lockdowns on Michiganders, promising each time that it'd be the last, claiming that it was in our best interest and that we're all in this together. And it comes out last month she traveled to Florida to visit her father. She's not even the only authoritarian politician caught breaking their own orders. Speaker of the House Pelosi was caught getting a haircut and then turned around and accused the salon of setting her up. The mayor of Denver told residents to stay home for Thanksgiving and then flew out to Mississippi with his family. And not to mention the countless politicians caught out dining with lobbyists or with each other after enforcing strict restaurant regulations. Rules for me, but not for thee. They don't care about the coronavirus, and they sure as hell don't care about you. Our political system has become such a show that the only people who seem capable of reaching such positions of power are the most well-dressed clowns. Even if there was a serious pandemic, I wouldn't trust them to do what needed to be done. They're more focused on how their pockets will survive, and that's about all you can trust. They'll make a big show to get you to believe them. They might even give out a few crumbs so they can parade around and exclaiming how helpful they are. It's hard to blame them at times, though, because like I was saying, at this point, to even survive politically in the current climate, you have to play at their level. Otherwise, their buddies in big tech and media will make sure your word never gets out, or worse, they'll smear you and lock you entirely out of the mainstream. There's ways around this that are becoming slowly more feasible, but it's not quite there yet. It really goes to show that all it takes is a good look at history to realize the government is not our friend. More like our predatory symbiotic partner that really should be classified as a parasite, but it protects us from other parasites. So one's potentially much worse, so for now there's not much of a choice. Though as a people we do have a prescribed duty to restrain that authority whenever possible, as to allow the society as a whole to mature. For if we want to have anything close to resembling utopian ideals at all, it can only be possible through society with individuals that can be independent for themselves and accept a responsibility beyond themselves. What do we get instead? An outdated education system, a corrupt and acidic media, a half-interested bureaucracy, and international corporations all working in unison to make sure the populace is fast asleep. Their goals aren't a secret. For years now, the wealthy elite of the world have been pushing their agenda in various forms. Now we have the World Economic Forum, a collective of wealthy lobbyists and corporate figureheads whose goals are clearly printed on their website and are repeated for their puppets around the world. They want to have complete control of the carbon cycle, most likely as some sort of global climate control, though I can only really speculate. Now, even if the threat of climate change is real and approaching, the solution is not to give the steering wheel to select unaccountable individuals. For myself, I know I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. An entire life as a slave isn't worth as much as a single day as a lion, for a person can only maintain that inner fire so long as they have something solid to stand upon. The opposite of bravery nowadays isn't cowardice, it's conformity. And the conforming individual has no will, no outward manifestation. Their thoughts and actions are defined and regulated by those around them, leaving them no room for a unique character to take hold. So, with that idea in mind, we have to ask ourselves, is the sacrifice worth it? What exactly are we as a people gaining by just trusting and believing in the powers that be? Some might say security, others might say regulation, but all I see when I look at the various countries around the world are large open-air prisons. Our cell here in America is a bit comfier than others, but nonetheless a prison all the same. The state has a monopoly on violence. They control and manipulate the supposed free market and coerce every generation of kids towards their own constructed narrative, which one can argue could be beneficial as to circumvent outside influence, but when you look at the kind of individual they're trying to mold, it in no way comes across as an independent, innovative person. Rather, we're getting people who are becoming more accustomed to state support to sustain themselves, and instead of getting kids interested in sciences, we're finding most people becoming interested only in social or retail positions. Most people just conform. Why face the risks of becoming your own person when you can just do what everyone else does? Less personal risks that way, right? But no, instead, those who trade their freedom for security deserve and will receive neither, and I hold that to my heart. The situation we're finding ourselves in is completely negates any argument for allowing the system to run the schools and manage our businesses. How are we supposed to resist that external influence if we can't produce functioning characters for our own society? The government would love to mimic the Chinese and set up a great firewall type deal so that foreign influence can be brought to a minimum, specialize every citizen to make them perfect tools for the system, and make them ultimately reliant upon that system for basic needs. Now, I have to stress a good look at history to see how systems like this have worked out in the past. Let's just say that if you thought the Holocaust was bad, just imagine the hundreds of millions who've died as a direct result of this kind of collectivism. It's honestly horrific. And you can say whatever you'd like about America's bad history, but it doesn't even compare to the suffering brought about by these regimes. It can seem unlikely in the current paradigm, but if you get around enough, you realize change is inevitable and often unforeseen. Just look at the gas shortages, the inflation, the labor shortage, depression rates, suicide rates. I mean, the list goes on and on. We found ourselves in quite the predicament, and ultimately there will be no way around it. The only way out is in, and that means trying to get our shit together and actually focus as a nation, though kind of hard to do when you have incompetent bureaucrats at the helm. So I guess they'd be a good place to start, especially the local seats. If we can get people to start giving a damn about their local elections, we might start to see some real change. This whole pandemic was a great example of what good local officials can accomplish. There were governors, counties, and sheriff's offices around the country refusing to comply with the authoritarianism. Not in the numbers one might hope, but enough to set the example. So, while I don't believe hope to be lost, we're definitely in for some short-term chaos. There's too much pent-up energy in the world, and we can already see the release valves turning in the Middle East. We have Israel and Hamas starting to duke it out. 1,800 rockets have already been shot into Israel. In response, Israel has been launching airstrikes into Gaza, with the high possibility of a full ground invasion. Our Afghan pullout has been delayed until September, and the Abraham Accords are starting to fall apart. Makes you wonder where all this sudden momentum is coming from. I'd argue a big factor is the administration change here in the U.S. Trump projected power, and overall there was more respect for the United States around the world during his administration. Now what we're seeing appears to be a worse version of the Carter administration. High inflation and a weak overseas image. China has been testing Taiwan. In a meeting in Anchorage, Alaska, they called the U.S. out for its own people lacking faith in the leadership. And are they really wrong to do so? Ultimately, my point is that our federal government can't be trusted with our health and much less our safety. Their goals have been turned by a global agenda, one that wishes to turn the world on its head and completely change our current understanding of how we run our societies. Chances are they'll at least be partially successful in their goals. So to keep the balance from tipping, the fight must go on. And that's exactly what we plan on doing here at Cowboy Radio. Lots more planned, so be sure to check back for future releases, but that's all for tonight. Stay safe and take care. For now, peace.